Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button as we're now on the road to 500 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And here today, we have Why Not Wednesday. If you're not familiar with Why Not Wednesday, every Wednesday I answer your guys' questions right here on the podcast. If you want your questions answered here every week, make sure to hit at @talkofthetown_pod on Instagram, TikTok, or even right here in the YouTube comments if you'd like. So let's get right into the first question here today. Starting off with, did Drake Maye lock up the MVP after Stafford's poor performance on Monday night? I still see everyone saying, hey, it's just one bad game, but Stafford has had some poor performances this year. What is your take? I don't think it's locked up by any stretch. I think Maye is back to being the betting favorite this week. At least the last time I checked, he was. And I kind of, this MVP race reminds me a lot of the Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson MVP race last year. Of course, the only thing that people are saying about Drake Maye is, quote unquote, the cupcake schedule. He hasn't played anybody, but, and you can always make an argument against any of these takes. Like, my argument against that is, and I say it no matter who it is, it's any given Sunday. I mean, the quote unquote cupcake games the Patriots had were the Falcons, the Panthers. Well, who did Matt Stafford lose to? The Falcons and the Panthers. He just lost to the Falcons a couple nights ago. He threw 3 interceptions and a pick 6, and he lost against the Panthers, had a game-losing fumble. He had a couple of picks in that game. Drake Maye went in and he beat the Panthers by almost like 30-something points or something like that. I mean, they literally kicked the Panthers' ass. I mean, it wasn't even close at all. And the Falcons, it was a closer game then, but I mean, I'd say he probably had a better game than Stafford in that game. So it's any given Sunday. Look at the Steelers on Sunday against the Browns. You have to go, it's to clinch a playoff spot, take the Ravens out of it. All you have to do is go in and beat the Cleveland Browns, who are just an absolute shambles right now. And you have yourself a playoff spot locked up. Even without DK Metcalf, and TJ Watt, you should look around and be like, well, they have Mike Tomlin. Aaron Rodgers isn't quite what he was 5 years ago, but he's had a pretty good season nonetheless. They still have good talent. They're so well coached. You look around, it's like Steelers should have won that game right there. It's too big of a spot for them to lose that game with an experienced coach like Tomlin like that. And they go out there and lose. So anything can happen. And that's why I don't really believe in the cupcake schedule. And you can only play who's on your schedule. One thing I say with them is like, yeah, the Patriots have the weakest schedule in the NFL, but you know who else is right there with them? The Denver Broncos. They have I think they're like a 0.5 or like a 0.7 or something more than the New England Patriots in terms of strength of schedule. And everyone's just like, oh, well, the Broncos are by far and away the best team in the AFC, this and that. And they're like, it doesn't matter if Bo Nix plays well. It's like, guys, like their schedule. Look at their division as well. I mean, it's kind of very similar to the AFC East. Like, yeah, the Buffalo Bills they have around the same record as the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers are completely falling apart due to injuries. But besides the Chargers and the Bills, who else do those two teams have in the AFC East and the AFC West? Raiders and the Chiefs, and the Chiefs obviously aren't even close to being the same team they were. I mean, or they have been the last 7-8 years or something like that. I mean, the Jets and Dolphins are just a joke, even though the Dolphins have gotten kind of better. But so it's very similar to the Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson MVP race from last year. They made the argument with Lamar that, you look at his team, he has all these all-pros around him. He has Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Marlon Humphrey, and they say the same with Stafford. He has Puka, Devontae, Kyron Williams, Jared Verse, Sean McVay. Like, everywhere you look, he's got studs everywhere. And that's what they said about Josh Allen is like, he's throwing to Khalil Shakir. He's throwing to Keon Coleman. Who's their best defensive player last year? Matt Milano, who plays like what seems like 5 years or 5 games a year. So it's just kind of all over the place. And and Maye's kind of in the same position Josh Allen was. Like, look at the team around him. Yeah, Stephon Diggs is good, but he's starting to Kyle Williams, Pop Douglas, Hunter Henry. These are good players, but, you look at their defense too, outside of Christian Gonzalez, they have a bunch of pretty average players. Carlton Davis ain't bad. Milton Williams, when he's healthy, is really good, but it's not comparable really to Matt Stafford and the Rams. So I say, and again, I think it's going to be very similar to the Lamar and Josh Allen one last year, to where, as I mentioned, like those two comparisons there with those two quarterbacks and their teams around them. But one thing I think that made the difference as well was the Bills and Ravens playoff game. That I know the playoffs aren't supposed to have any implications on the MVP voting, but I honestly, I kind of feel like they did, because you look at Lamar's stats and it's kind of like, how the hell did he not win the MVP? But you look at the playoffs last year. Josh Allen went in and beat Baltimore. He went in and knocked Lamar Jackson out of the playoffs. And I know Mark Andrews dropped that ball at the goal line, but I heavily think that if Lamar Jackson and the Ravens went into Buffalo and won that game, Lamar Jackson would have won the MVP last year. I kind of had a little bit of a hot take on that, to where I thought they should have shared the award. You guys remember when McNair and Manning shared the award? I thought it should have been something like that. I mean, their stats were like, there's no reason Lamar shouldn't have won MVP, but there's also no reason Josh Allen shouldn't have won MVP either. That's why I thought they should have shared it. And could we kind of be in that same situation here this year with Maye and Stafford? Now, this year going into Week 17, again, I think it's going to be come down to who gets further in the playoffs. If the Patriots get knocked out in the first round and the Rams go on to get to the NFC Championship, I think they'll give it to Stafford. But, if it's the other way around, I think they'll give it to Maye. I know playoff implications, again, aren't supposed to count, but I think those voters definitely look at that when it's so just neck and neck between these guys. I mean, you look at Stafford's passing numbers, they are better than Maye's. I think he has like 8 more passing touchdowns or something like that. He has like 40-something touchdowns. Maye has 30-something, and they both have the same amount of interceptions. But you also look at Maye's rushing numbers. They eclipse Stafford's. I mean, we know Stafford isn't a runner either. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on. I don't think it's going to be settled in Week 17. Again, these two teams, Patriots play the Dolphins, and the Rams play the Cardinals. I mean, they both play pretty shitty teams. So, we'll see. But I don't think it's going to be settled by next week. Browns fan here. This is my first question for the pod. And do you think we're really just a QB away? I honestly think we have some elite talent between Jerry Jeudy, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and a young buck like Schlesinger. I think next year we will shock the world. I'm showing a little bit of tough love here, but I can't see the Browns shocking the world, like, ever. Maybe one day under a new ownership group with a new GM, maybe something, but I don't trust the ownership to do anything. And that's kind of the one thing I've heard with the Browns is, like, I've never seen a team in the media so much, and kind of in a positive light as well, than the Cleveland Browns. I mean, people, they sit there and say, well, Cleveland is a great defense, which they do. They had a really big win against the Steelers, even though it doesn't really mean anything except kind of move them lower down in the draft. Kind of just messes up their draft position. But I'm not taking away that their defense is great, but people just make it seem like, this team, there's talent everywhere. There's someone on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense is fantastic if they only had a quarterback. But every time I look up, it's Browns lose, Browns lose, Browns lose. Just, I mean, every time I look up. And it's not only this year, it's every single time I look at the Browns. Every year I come in and I look at the media, and it's people saying, the Browns, they had Flacco coming in this year. I think they'll be a lot better than people think. And then, I remember I was saying earlier at the beginning of the year that, guys, the Browns are the Browns. They are a clown show organization. They just are. It's what they always have been. And honestly, Jerry Jeudy's having one of the worst years of his career, if not the worst year. He's probably the worst number 1 receiver in the NFL. He's a bottom 5 number 1 receiver right now, at least this season. Myles Garrett, obviously, is Myles Garrett. Not much to talk about there. Denzel Ward, great corner. I'm not taking anything away there. They do have talent, like Schlesinger. That's the guy to look out for what is it, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Like, he's a great player. But the thing is these questionable decisions by the Browns. I don't trust them to all of a sudden just turn this thing around in a season. Because how long have we been waiting for that from Cleveland? They've had good players in the past. Joe Thomas, Baker Mayfield. I mean, Joe Thomas is one of the greatest tackles to ever live. Most people wouldn't know him if he walked in the same room as you, because he played for the Cleveland Browns his whole career. I don't even know if he's ever made the playoffs. If he did, maybe he made it once, but I don't know. I don't think Joe Thomas has ever made the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, even though he's kind of having a bit of a rough stretch throughout the season right now, he's been great since he's left Cleveland. We had that year with Carolina, and then he went to LA, kind of had a little bit of a resurgence in LA. But ever since he's gotten to Tampa, got a playoff win, took him to the playoffs a couple times. Maybe he'll take him to the playoffs again this year. That's to be determined. But I think there's bigger issues in Tampa than just Baker Mayfield. And even though he hasn't played great down the stretch, but I think it comes down to coaching and just players wanting to play for Todd Bowles and stuff. I think the whole locker room's just a mess. I talked about that yesterday, but I don't necessarily think I trust Cleveland's ownership room, their GMs, to all of a sudden turn this thing around. Like, look at last year in the draft when they took Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. Could you imagine they used that on potentially an offensive lineman to try and develop another pass rusher besides like anything else, mainly on the offensive side of the ball? Took in a receiver, but you spent it on Dylan Gabriel, who ends up getting benched for Shedeur Sanders, who you take in the 5th round, when you already had Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson, and what's his name, Joe Flacco. You already had like 4 quarterbacks, and then they had Tyler Huntley to the mix. It's like, what are we doing? And I've never seen an organization in the last couple of years get such praise than the Cleveland Browns. Yes, they had that miraculous playoff year a few years ago when they made it with Flacco. They ended up signing him off the couch, and him and Amari Cooper had a great connection, and they looked fantastic. But I mean, besides that, what the hell have they done? They won the playoff game with Baker Mayfield. Well, they ended up shipping him off. I remember OBJ's dad made some sort of mixtape about Baker, and that was that for Baker Mayfield. He was gone. So it's too much for that organization. Too much of, well, this is that and this is next year. I have to wait and see. When will they ever be consistent and not just have a random outlier year? I don't know if they ever will. Teams like the Browns, here's the thing. Look at the top of the draft order this year. Hold on, let me actually I was looking at it earlier, but I just want to give you the exact order. Hold on, give me one sec. NFL draft order 2026. Here we go. These are the top teams. Las Vegas, the Giants, the Jets, Tennessee, Arizona, Cleveland. I mean, how many times do we look up and you see Tennessee drafting top 5? You see Arizona drafting top 5. You see Cleveland drafting top 5. You see the Raiders, the Giants. Just every year, it doesn't change for these teams. And I don't know what the hell they're going to do with what's his name, Stefanski next year, but I don't know. I can't see them being a quarterback away, and maybe they do have Shedeur. I mean, I don't even know what they're going to do with him. Do they maybe trade up to get a QB? Do they take a chance on Dante Moore? What do they do? It depends on who comes out of this draft. And besides Fernando Mendoza, it's not necessarily a very QB-heavy draft. A lot of the guys we thought that were maybe potentially going to come out this year are staying another year in college. So we'll just we'll have to wait and see for that. But I don't trust the Browns to make the right decision. Maybe one day when they get a new ownership group, they get a new GM, maybe something will change. But that ownership has been a clown. It's been a shit show for my entire life, and even most of our parents' lives. They've just been a dumpster fire. Loved your Instagram reel about your take on the Panthers making the playoffs. Do you truly believe we could make a run? Hey, if there's anyone who believes in the Panthers since day one, it's you. Man, I'm glad you loved my reel. I made sure to post that. I remember I was sitting with my girlfriend, and I seen the Panthers ended up winning against the Buccaneers, and I was like, dude, they have a chance to close this thing out and make the playoffs, and everyone's talking about, oh, the Panthers this, how the hell? No one could have ever predicted the Carolina Panthers could have made the playoffs. I was like, hey, this guy did right here, I did. So I had to make sure to go back to my YouTube from months ago before the season started. And then I went and screen recorded that, posted it on TikTok, Instagram, or you've seen it, and YouTube Shorts and on. Hey, I'm glad you've seen it. I'm glad you loved it. I'm glad you're giving me some recognition. It means the world to me, man. But, in terms of them making a run, I think the Panthers could maybe win a game, just pull off an upset game. Do you remember the New York Giants a couple years ago when they made the playoffs back in 2022 and it kind of shocked everybody? That's kind of what this run reminds me of, and they ended up upsetting the Minnesota Vikings. I can see the Panthers, if they win their division, they get a home game to start it off. They end up winning it, and potentially end up winning that game at home, and then maybe they go play in Philly or they go play against LA, which to the Panthers' credit, they did end up beating a few weeks ago. But I can't necessarily see them going on a run, especially with how inconsistent they've been. Like, they could have had this division locked up weeks ago. They can't beat New Orleans. I mean, I don't know if you've seen them against the Seattle defense last week. Oh, my God. Bryce Young against man coverage. He threw for like 50 yards. Ted McMillan had like 5 yards receiving and only 1 catch. It was just a disaster. I mean, it was truly terrible. And mind you, that's the teams you're going to have to play in the playoffs. And teams are kind of like, if we just play man coverage, I mean, we'll just tear Carolina alive, because Carolina against man coverage all year has not been great. And I don't necessarily trust Dave Canales in the playoffs to stay consistent with his playoff calling. Or with his play calling, excuse me, I got a little mixed up there, with his play calling. And, that's kind of thing against the 49ers. What was it on? It was on Monday Night Football a few weeks ago. Rico Dowdle, like, he just didn't run the ball with him or Chuba Hubbard. And every time they handed off to Rico Dowdle, it's like 8 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards, 11 yards. And I'm just like, why the hell is he not handing it off to this guy more? And all of a sudden you see Bryce, there's another pick, another 3 and out, another, like, I love Bryce Young just as much as the next guy, but I can't see them making a run. For one, I just don't think they have enough. Like I mentioned, I think they have enough to maybe win a playoff game, shock a team. Very reminiscent of just that 2022 New York Giants team, like I mentioned, where Daniel Jones, Daboll, they went in there, they snuck in the playoffs, out of nowhere. Everyone was expecting the Giants to maybe finish 5-12 like they always do, pick number 5, 4, 5, 6 in the draft, and have another disappointing year. And they came out and kind of shocked everybody. Next thing you know, their division's kind of crumbling around them, and that's kind of what happened to the Panthers. Buccaneers kind of crumbled this year. The Saints, we kind of expected them to be what they were. I mean, no one expected the Saints to be good at all. They're actually projected to be the worst team in the league. They actually haven't been. They've kind of been on a tear the last few weeks or so. I think they've won, what, four out of the last like 5 games or something like that. So a lot of credit to the Saints there. But the Falcons, how disappointing have they been just year in and year out? I mean, really, since that Super Bowl year, almost a decade ago, the Falcons really just haven't done shit, to be completely honest with you. So I believed in the Panthers. I believed in them to get to the playoffs, and they still have some work to do. Like, even if they lose to the Bucs, all the Falcons have to do is win, and the Panthers are in it. A lot of people think, oh, well, this is a Ravens-Steelers situation. It's do or die. Like, honestly, it's not. They don't even have to win. All the Falcons have to do is win against the Saints, which is not a gimme game at all. And the Panthers will be in. So I think maybe they can win a game or something like that, but they just don't have enough to make a run. And personally, that team's too young with no experience. And Dave Canales is the same. Like, I don't trust Dave Canales in a NFC divisional game against Sean McVay. And let's say it's a 7-10 point game, and then and they need to go down there and drive. I don't trust them at all to do that. This one, Matty Bo or Pete Davidson, I don't know which one to call you anymore, LMAO. What would you say is your favorite video game of all time? Trying to switch up the question bank. I'll make this quick. Love the Call of Duty series growing up my whole life. Love Black Ops 2, stuff like that. Grinded those games. Man, those are my childhood right there, right? I would say the game I had the most time spent on is Rainbow Six Siege. 2K. I love my 2K. I love Madden. I don't play Madden as much as I do 2K. Like, literally, my Xbox gamer tag is based off of 2K. But I have a ridiculous amount of time spent on Siege that I'm not going to say here on the podcast, because, look, I don't play Siege anymore. I mean, I go into a game every now and then to kind of play it, but I don't really enjoy playing it anymore. But that's my most played game by a mile. I'd say that's my favorite game, man. I love playing that. Played it a lot during quarantine. God, we were in like 11th grade during quarantine. I was like 16, 17 years old, something like that. Played a lot of Siege then, of course, which I think racked up a lot of my days played on that game. That if anyone follows me on Xbox, please do not check my time played on Rainbow Six Siege. I'm begging you. And anyone who's wondering who's played it, I am a multiple-time champ. Whatever that means to anyone anymore, it doesn't really mean shit to me. It just kind of means I just wasted time, that I could have spent doing my podcast or studying something else besides sitting here grinding for champ and screaming at the other 4 people in my stack like a fucking lunatic, keeping everyone up in my house till 4 a.m, So I definitely say that. I'd say 2K, dude. I love 2K19. I made a video on it months ago. Like, 2K19 is my favorite 2K. over 2K17, 16. Mind you, I played those games, man. I played 2K14. I had the Jay-Z edition. I had all that. One thing I will say that's kind of killed video games for me, especially when I'm just kind of getting older, I just don't necessarily enjoy it as much anymore. I just like talking to my friends, really. We all get like a big party. We'll play some for a little bit, then we'll kind of get off of it. And that's just kind of that, to be honest with you. There's just corporate greed is killing these games. Call of Duty is a prime example. I mean, my God, look at Call of Duty this year with Black Ops 7. It's just atrocious. It really is. I mean, I think they're at the lowest point they've ever been at in their franchise and player base, everything. Now they're talking about making budget cuts to the game. Corporate greed has killed video games. It's really killed everything, to be honest with you. I mean, you go out, you go to buy anything, it's just everything's so expensive. I mean, the greed is just incredible, especially in video games, man. I mean, my God. You log on, you don't get any content for 2 months on a game, but there's a new skin bundle out for $20 you can spend every day. Every day it comes out with on Call of Duty, you could buy a skin bundle for your guns and your character for $20. They have a new one every day, but God forbid they drop an update to fix something or just do anything to the game, and you go 2 months and it seems like nothing has happened. And it's just, I don't know. But I'd say like Rainbow Six Siege is definitely my game. Siege and 2K, this has been my games my whole life. Call of Duty has been the same in like a decade. Black Ops 3, which was 10 years ago, was the last like really good one. I enjoyed Cold War, but in Warzone, I still play Warzone, but that game ain't nowhere near the same, bro. Hey man, who would you say is the most irrelevant franchise in the NFL at the moment? Huge fan, and I'm loving your work. Keep grinding. Appreciate it. There's a lot of irrelevant franchises, man. The Browns, like I was just talking about them a few minutes ago. One thing with the Browns, though, it's like I mentioned, they're always in the media, dude. People are always talking about the Browns. For a team you always look up and it says, Browns lose, Browns lose. They're just always in the media. I'd say probably over just a stretch. I mean, the Raiders are, they're in a big market with Las Vegas, but how bad have they been? I mean, they had a couple of years with Derek Carr where they made the playoffs, but I think they've had 3 winning seasons in the last like 20 years or something like that. And I didn't even realize that until I seen that graphic like a year or so ago. I was like, oh my God, the Raiders are even worse than I thought. Yeah, they were awful. I mean, they moved out of Oakland. Yeah, I don't know. The Raiders got to be up there. I don't think I can necessarily name one in specific. Like the Arizona Cardinals, I mean, it's just another one that no one really cares about unless you're a Cardinals fan. I hate to say it to any Cardinals fans on here, but I mean, really, who ever looks up and it's like, oh, look at the Cardinals, they're 8-2. The Cardinals out there, hey, they went out there, they just kicked this team's ass. They look fantastic. Like, was the last time they said 2020 when they started off 8-0? I mean, Kyler Murray's been a disappointment. They had the whole Josh Rosen debacle a few years ago. When they drafted him, was it 9th overall? And then they drafted Kyler Murray 1st overall the next year, ended up firing Steve Wilkes and Cliff Kingsbury. And I remember Kingsbury said, no, man, Rosen's our guy. And a month later, he ends up drafting Kyler Murray. So what a disaster. And they, I give them credit. They did go all in a couple years ago. They traded for D-Hop. They signed AJ Green, signed JJ Watt, but organizations like that just can't ever seem to make anything work. And again, you look through those organizations' history. They have an outlier year in 2007, 2008. They end up making the Super Bowl with Kurt Warner. They didn't do anything after that for a long time. Till 2015, they go and sign Carson Palmer, and you have a prime Larry Fitzgerald. And you go out there and you make the NFC Championship and get blasted by Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, 5 years later, they go on in 2020, 2021. They start off 8-0. They cool down in their first-round exit to the Rams. They have outlier years, but teams like that are just never consistent. The Titans are another one. I mean, how bad have the Titans been for the last couple of years? Ever since Mike Vrabel. I mean, that's going to hold that organization for a while, at least until they find another competent head coach. The Titans are just in that group of just irrelevance, and they're just completely irrelevant. The Panthers as well, they just don't do much. I mean, really, again, like I mentioned, it's the same teams at the top of the draft every year that are, hey, this is going to be this team's year this year. They drafted a quarterback, but who's always at the top of the lineup? Las Vegas, New York, the Jets are another one. So the Jets are in New York, and they're just infamously known for being bad. So that's the only reason why they get any talk. Tennessee, Arizona, Cleveland. Mind you, too, with those teams, they're all picking top 6. I just listed that in order. Yeah, so I just, it kind of speaks for itself. This year's draft just speaks for itself. Those are the most irrelevant franchises in the NFL. Maybe really just in sports, period. You go around to hockey, you got some really bad teams. Basketball, like, who am I trying to, like the Sacramento Kings. I mean, ever since Chris Webber, they actually had a couple years ago with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, they had the Beam team. I remember that. That was a pretty good team. I think they ended up knocking Steph Curry and the Warriors out of the playoffs. But the Kings are one of the worst teams in the NBA right now. They blew it up after that. I don't know what the Kings were doing. Again, organizations can never just have long-term success ever. That's why they stay how they are. If John Harbaugh were to get fired, who do you think would be the first team to snatch him? I'm sure teams would be lining up out the door to get him. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know who would be lining up out the door to get him. You look at some of these older coaches, or just look for an example at the league right now. Like, the league is pivoting to younger guys. Ben Johnson. Like, Mike McCarthy hasn't gotten a job. And you look at him, his regular season success, he's won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Those years with the Cowboys he had, I mean, I know the last year he had, which was last year, wasn't great, but they still finished like 8-9 or something like that. Dak was hurt the majority of the season. They didn't start Cooper Rush. I mean, take a look at I'm trying to like Bill Belichick. He never got another chance. Pete Carroll's going to be dumped after this year. Never going to shot ever again. And everyone was shocked at the Pete Carroll hiring. Everyone was like, they're hiring Pete Carroll? He's going to be the oldest coach in the NFL? Like, these teams are pivoting on the younger guys. And it's not so easy for these older coaches to get jobs anymore. And John Harbaugh, people are going to kind of look and be like, you look at the team he had in Baltimore. Did he ever overachieve with a Baltimore Ravens team? No, he didn't. Honestly, it looks like you look at him every year, you kind of look, they underachieve. They don't get to a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. They had like the number one defense, one of the best defenses in NFL history a couple of years ago. They're at home against the Chiefs. They're a favorite in the AFC Championship. They lose. You always look at those Harbaugh Ravens teams. It's like, yeah, they're good enough to get to the playoffs because they have a lot of talent. And they were all in their prime. Look at them this year now that they're all kind of leaving their prime. Lamar's kind of banged up. They're not the same team. And you look and it's like, oh, God, the coaching is really bad. And one constant through all of it has been John Harbaugh. The years they get to the playoffs and they don't run the football when they had the number one rushing offense in the NFL. How many times have we looked up throughout the last 8 years and the Baltimore Ravens have had the number one rushing offense in the NFL? Whether or not they have Derrick Henry or they have Latavius Murray or whoever, and they had him a few years ago. It doesn't matter. They always have the number one rushing offense in the NFL, it seems like. And every time they get to the playoffs, like against Tennessee in 2019, when they were the number one seed and at home, what do? Lamar Jackson throws over 50 passes, and he's getting intercepted, balls flying all over the place, and it's the same thing year in and year out. They underachieve, and I think teams are going to look at that as you get guys who are younger. You're going to get guys like Shula, the Rams defensive coordinator. You're going to get guys like Jesse Minter, you Ben Johnson this year. Like, yeah, Mike Vrabel and Mike Tomlin are kind of like the cap of older guys. Everyone knows Mike Vrabel shouldn't have been fired from the Titans a couple of years ago. Everyone and their mother knows that. That's why he gets another chance. But John Harbaugh, it's like, yeah, he probably should be fired if he does get fired. The team is underachieving year in and year out. It's not the same as a Mike Vrabel situation. They just consistently underachieve. So I don't know if teams will be lining up out the door to get him, to be honest with you. The league is pivoting to younger guys. And they're showing a lot of success. I mean, like the Jags with Liam Cohen. He's the first-year head coach to lead a team from going to 4 wins to 12 wins the next year. League's pivoting, man, and it's also an offensive league. I think Harbaugh is like a special teams coach, so kind of odd there, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really know if teams will be lining up out the door to get him, but that's all I got for today, y'all. Appreciate y'all's questions again. If you want your questions answered here every Wednesday, Make sure to hit @talkofthetown_pod, Instagram, TikTok. Here are the comments, and you will have your questions answered. I hope everyone has a good New Year's.